That's all, folks. The 2023 NFL season is officially done. And your champion of the National Football League is the Kansas City Chiefs. Super Bowl 58 was this past Sunday, and the Kansas City Chiefs took down the San Francisco 49ers in overtime by a score of 25-22. The Chiefs have officially declared a dynasty here in the Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid era. The 49ers lose another heartbreaker in the Kyle Shanahan era. And we continue this great story with this league. This was the 104th season of the NFL. We're already looking forward to week one of next season. But until then, let's recap this game. Let's talk about what we saw. And then, yeah, that's it. Then we're back at it in a couple months with the draft. So great. Kevin Schaefer is with me. What's up, Kevin?
How's it going, Matt?
Great to see you. Looking awesome as always. So let's get to it, Kevin. Right here off the bat, tell me your initial thoughts of Super Bowl 58.
First hour of the game was unbearable. I mean, I don't know if anyone else felt that way, but just did not have the atmosphere of a Super Bowl. Was not a fan of the halftime show.
No.
I mean, in like 2015, that would have been the coolest halftime show I'd ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
In 2024, it was a lot of an old man dancing around the stage, so it got kind of weird at points there. The second half was electric, one of the better second halves we've seen in the Super Bowl in a very long time. And it was fantastic. And then obviously the overtime rules confused everyone, including the 49ers players.
Yeah. And we'll get into how that might have been the fatal mistake, but I feel the same way as you. It was clearly a tale of two halves. Ultimately, it did end in a very exciting manner, but as you also mentioned, the overtime rules were confusing for everybody. But ultimately, I want to say Super Bowl 58 was a classic per se, but I do think it was put everything together. I'll put it in a very good category. Like, you know how they do the online rankings, S tier, A tier, B tier. I would have to give it I'd give it a B tier. It is the second overtime. There were some accurate plays, but I'll give it a B tier. If you say like Super Bowl, if we go like I don't know the last S tier off the top of my head, we'll go with the Seahawks and Patriots. If that's an S tier,
Yeah.
and an A tier would be in recent times. If we say an A tier Super Bowl would be even last year's Eagles and Chiefs game, with the exception of the
Yeah.
holding call on Bradbury. If that's an A tier, this is a B tier because it was an overtime game as mentioned, and it went down to the wire. And that's all you can ask for.
I mean, it didn't even feel like an overtime game, though. Was the
True.
craziest thing. I mean, but I think that's partially due to the overtime rules.
Yeah, and everybody obviously this was a reactionary rule as a result of the divisional game between Buffalo and KC. You know what happens. Josh Allen doesn't even get the ball. Huge what if. But still trying to figure out what makes the most sense. It seems everybody compares these rules to the college football one.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, you don't really need a clock per se. It's all based on possessions. And when we get to the 49ers aspect of it, we could talk about, again, probably the fatal mistake of giving KC the ball first.
Well, I mean,
Oh, sorry, giving themselves the ball first and KC the ball second.
I was super confused actually in our group chat today when I said, how come no one's talking about Andy Reid's decision to not call a timeout there and just keep playing through? I had no clue that if the clock ran out, they would just start another 15-minute period.
Yeah, exactly. And then they would just call it overtime too, and I would guess, and then if you want to get people upset with the script, because I believe the head of CBS Sports Programming actually said they're getting a 2 overtime Super Bowl, and that literally went down to the last second. But I guess maybe Andy Reid himself too was confused by it. Obviously we'll give them the week to celebrate, and maybe he'll admit it later on. But especially as free agency begins. But I guess it was just strange. Some things don't are just too strange to break down.
Well, I think this Super Bowl and the ending specifically puts away any real idea that there's script writers in the NFL.
Hmm. I
Because
think.
there's no way if there's a script writer in the NFL that they didn't end on a Travis Kelce walk-off touchdown.
Oh my God, they were about to do that at the end of the fourth quarter. He threw to him and just missed on Burks, who replaced Greenlaw, and like I was like, wow, that really was about to happen. And then you could see in the McCall Hardman play that he only had one person contesting him, but hence the double coverage allowed Hardman to get open,
Yeah.
and well, we know what happened there. And yeah, that you hit it on the nail perfect. If Travis Kelce was the one to get the Super Bowl winning touchdown, then don't believe anything anymore. Matrix
Yeah.
is real. We're all red pilling it. And
Well, did you see Joe Biden's tweet?
yes, I did. If everybody reference, he off top of my head, he's like, just as we scripted, I think he was the literal words.
Yeah, just
And then
as we planned it.
it's like, oh my God, that's a whole other story. We have plenty of election coverage to discuss throughout the year. But your grandpa joke wasn't funny, Mr. Joe. Um, but yeah, I mean, why don't we now? This is a good time to focus on the Kansas City aspect of this win. And we both could call the Chiefs winning. I will say I did hit the spread, but you were very close, Cook, on either way. Um, but about KC actually winning it. So from what we saw in this game, what do you think was the key component for KC to take down San Francisco?
I mean, Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, when it came down to it, and I mean, Purdy was phenomenal. Anyone who says that, let's stop the Purdy talk now that he lost. I mean, he got them to a Super Bowl. He
mm-hmm.
drove them down in overtime. He did everything right. Pat Mahomes just got in the end zone, and he didn't. That's the only difference. And then it's also, again, that goes to the overtime rules. But I think for the Chiefs specifically, their motto the next 5-10 years should just be try and beat us. Come beat us. We're the cream of the crop, no matter if we have a rookie wide receiver one or Travis Kelce's 50, we're still going to be the team to beat. And I think that's how they have to look at it, the way those Patriots teams did. With the Patriot way, we're the team that, the AFC runs through us, the AFC West runs through us. And if you want to change that, come beat us.
Yeah, dude, especially with this team on paper and how they were playing like the Chiefs of all the 2023 Chiefs offensively all year long with sloppy play. Kelce having he especially was the story of the two
down
halves.
here, yeah.
And yet they still won. And I think it's fair to say whether you want to make a huge essay on the Chiefs win and what they win, or they simply say they win because of Patrick Mahomes. Yes, this clearly proved it. And whether it was with his legs, 66 yards rushing, over 300 yards in the air in a Super Bowl, I mean, there you go. And there's a reason why he won his third Super Bowl MVP.
I mean, everyone said all year this was the year to dethrone the Chiefs. That if you're going to do it, there's going to be a year that you're going to do it. And yet they had to play 3 AFC juggernauts to get to to get to the Super Bowl. They had to play Miami, who was no slouch all year. Put up 72 on Denver. They had to play Buffalo, who everyone says is the other real contender in the AFC, and then they had to play the number 1 seed in Baltimore. Yep, and then they played the team that arguably everyone considered the best team in the NFL all year.
Yeah.
Favored in all 20 of their games. This was the year. If this was the year to beat them, does anyone beat them in the next 5 years? Are they going to string together eight in a row? I don't think so, because that's almost impossible in the NFL. But I mean,
it almost feels like they can. It almost feels like they can win 8 in a row. Like that's a scary thought. And as you mentioned too, just to add on to your point, which is an excellent one, it's the fact that they beat another one seed as well, and they're the 4 seed,
Yeah.
and they just win. And the biggest aspect is the Kansas City defense. Give Spagnuolo the credit, arguably the best defensive coordinator ever. I mean, not only his defense beat the undefeated Patriots and now led it to this way. I mean, not a lot of coordinators are. I don't think anyone's actually inducted as a coordinator in the Hall of Fame, but maybe they'll make an exception because he really clearly
And
changed his whole league with
I
his
believe he's
play.
the only coordinator to ever win 4 Super Bowls
There you
as a
go.
coordinator.
And in both conferences too. That's saying
Yeah.
something. And I think it's obvious to say this shows it's okay if you're better suited as a coordinator. I believe Spags. I know he was an interim coach for the Giants, but I don't know if he was ever a head coach. But regardless, though, he's probably the unsung hero for keeping this stellar 49ers defense down. And he was able to get the weapon. Purdy did play a good game, but you wanted him to play better in that. For instance, George Kittle was missing. That was
Yeah.
very surprising. Only 2 catches on 4 targets. Brandon Ayuk, I think, only had around 30 yards. Debo did get hurt, but he was the only other benefactor. And then keeping McCaffrey to just an okay game at 80 at a
Yeah.
combined, he was the only factor in that, and that's all on the defense there.
Well, Sauce Gardner actually said a couple hours ago on Twitter, he said Trent McDuffie should have been the Super Bowl MVP.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, McDuffie just absolutely shut down Debo, Kittle,
Yeah,
and Ayuk. Whenever one of them lined up in the slot, they were you couldn't throw to them. I mean, they were completely covered, just shut down the slot all game
yeah.
long.
And it was just him too, as you mentioned. And the Washington standout turning into some special player. I believe he's an all-pro this year.
Yes,
Yeah,
he is
this
an
is the
all pro.
year. There you go. Already all right, 2 Super Bowls under his belt.
First ever slot corner all pros. The first year they've had slot corner as an all
Yeah,
pro position.
makes sense. He was the biggest reason why they won, especially on defense, as you said. And then I guess this is a good transition for talking about the 49ers, and I think there's a little more to talk about there. But they were able to contain the Chiefs on defense for a little bit. But I don't know. When the killer here was Dre Greenlaw tearing his Achilles running out on the field.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just
I
bad
mean
luck, man.
that's so sad to see. I mean,
Yeah.
you never want to see that happen. An injury, just walking on the field is horrible. And in the Super Bowl, your biggest game of your life, and you go to step on the field and your Achilles ruptures. So that's just, I mean, you can't imagine what's going through his head now.
Yeah, they must have killed the vibe, even though as I said, the 49ers kept it in it, but um that was a huge miss.
Well,
As I mentioned,
his replacement in coverage was targeted 9 times, gave up 9 receptions for I think it was like 130 yards and almost
mhm,
a perfect passer rating.
you see what a difference one player makes. And
Yeah.
it is just too bad, heartbreaking as you will. Now, as you mentioned, if you watch the game, you notice it was pretty much Christian McCaffrey, and even him. It's hard to say with a combined, I want to say 120 yards off the top of my head, rushing and receiving. But he was, regardless, using just the eye test, he was the only one who really made the big moves. And
Yeah.
then coming into the second half with a slim 10-3 lead. And I think the thing that one of the strategies you have to play against the defense is anything is making sure you have the time and possession and make sure Mahomes doesn't get on the field. For some reason, Shanahan wasn't rushing him or
Yeah.
Elijah Mitchell more. I think that was a critical mistake, having McCaffrey not pretty much not run in the second half. Even though it would have been boring to watch, maybe a football fan like us would
Yeah.
appreciate that. That must have been. I think that was a huge mistake on Shanahan's part. Do you?
But I mean, all year long, you've been a team that's been able to line up and cram it down people's throat because I mean, McCaffrey's never been a back that's going to get you 4 or 5 on every carry.
Mhm.
but every once in a while he's going to break one for 40. Give
Yeah.
him the ball. You're already up 7. I mean, I know you don't want to have the Lions or that game again where you let up off on the gas and let them come back. You don't want to play it safe like that, but put the ball in the hands of your best player and let him rumble and bring you home a Super Bowl. And they just didn't.
What is it, Spank, with already now in this modern era, when you have a true number one running back taking over the game? I just don't know why these coaches are facilitating them in the biggest game. I mean, I kept thinking about Marshawn Lynch in the Super Bowl we just mentioned, and obviously not having him run in for the touchdown. And record, it didn't come down to a final play like that on offense for San Francisco. It's like you feel for these running backs. They get abused the most, and they fight to get paid. And when you need them the most, it's like these coaches are all colluding against them to not give them their big moment.
I mean, I get it, but if you're going to trust anyone, and the thing I do understand, and being a football player growing up,
Mhm.
if you're going to trust anyone with the game on the line, close game, you're going to trust your quarterback with the ball. And
Yeah.
that's all it is. I mean, that's the only reason. There's no vendetta against running backs. It's game on the line, Super Bowl, we're up 7. There's only 15, 20 minutes left in actual in-play game time. You're going to put the ball in the hand of your quarterback and let him try and make you a play to win the game. And
Amen to that. I agree.
that's just what it is.
I definitely support that. And if anything, also with the San Francisco side, you can now at least have Brock Purdy get a little more respect to get them in there. And if a
Yeah.
few plays went the other way, Brock Purdy would be a Super Bowl champion now. This isn't Rex Grossman getting Chicago to a Super Bowl. This is a legitimate quarterback who should be the number one in San Francisco for the next 10 years.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, again, who's to say if you know those overtime rules well and you go out there and you kick the ball first that Brock Purdy doesn't lead that game-winning touchdown drive.
Right.
I mean, it just kind of comes down to who got the short end of the stick on there. And I mean, Purdy still drove them down the field. Mahomes had to go for it. I think it was twice on fourth down on his
Yeah, there
final
was a
drive.
yeah, there was a 4th and 1 that further the side off, just things went a little differently.
And Purdy never got the chance to go for it on fourth because of the overtime rules. It was score, let them score,
Yeah.
and try and stop them. And so I think things could have gone very differently. And I think anyone who's going to try and pile on Brock Purdy now after a Super Bowl loss is dead wrong. And if they pile
Straight
on him, my
ignorant.
question to them is, why didn't you pile on Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow's, I mean, the only difference is Joe Burrow was taken number 1 overall. He's been a very, he put up very similar numbers. He's been a very game manager type quarterbacks. He's had bad stretches, the way that Purdy had a couple bad stretches, and no one's piling on him for losing a Super Bowl. So and I know I'm sure in the comments I'll get absolutely dumped on for comparing those two, but I don't see a difference if they've both brought their teams to Super Bowls. You know,
It's a likability factor at the end of the day, I guess. And it's gonna have to I think it will have to take Brock winning it all to finally get it. But you know, I think there's a good chance. Now, Spank, I want you to be honest. I genuinely hold your football opinion higher than almost anyone. In fact, I think I have a huge admiration for it. I really do, and I know a lot of people. So why don't we talk about the white elephant and the scapegoat right now? Kyle Shanahan has gotten a lot of criticism after this game due to his in-game decisions. And I'm just going to ask the broad question, Kevin. Is Kyle Shanahan the person to blame for San Francisco losing?
I don't think that you can blame any one person.
Mhm.
I mean, I think not running the ball in the second half, not having a couple days to go over the Super Bowl overtime rules. I think those are big misses on his part. The defense in the second half did not play the same way. He's not the defensive guy. He calls the offense. So there's going to be some blame on the defensive players, the scheming, the plays called by the defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
You
Steve
lose Drake,
McManus.
you lose Dre Greenlaw. Huge. I mean, he's the reason. Big part of the reason why Kelsey had one catch for 1 yard in the first half. I mean, Dre Greenlaw is a premier cover linebacker in the NFL, and to lose him is absolutely huge. So I don't think you can pin a loss on any one person, coach, player, whatever it is. I think he needs to sit down and reevaluate how he prepared for the game, because you need to always have that. Every possibility is a possibility. I mean, you have to go into the game thinking we could go into quadruple overtime. I need to prepare my team for if there's a specific rule for quadruple overtime. Your team needs to be. It's the NFL. You're not playing high school ball anymore. Your team needs to be prepared for every possible situation, because if you get into that situation, it changes careers, it changes lives, it changes everything.
There you go. Couldn't say any better. I think it's fair to say that. And Kyle Shanahan, just at this moment, is the coach that could get to the big game, but he won't win the big game. Similarly to the coach who just won, Andy Reid, with his third Super Bowl win as a head coach now, he's immortalized. He
Yeah.
is in your Mount Rushmore of greatest head coaches of all time. And he had almost the exact same rap as Kyle Shanahan, getting to so many NFC championships, losing heartbreakers, from Carolina to Tampa and all of that, then getting really close in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, and then just always winning the regular season. Then he was let go, goes to Kansas City, and we know what happens. Do you feel like Kyle Shanahan, that's almost his destiny? Because you can't say he's a bad coach. He's not. It's just all these factors that came in, and it really does. Like, I think it shows in life. You have to be prepared for every little aspect in this results-oriented world.
I mean, I when you have a dynasty that comes together, or you win a championship, it's not just because of the coach or the quarterback. In my mind, it's always going to be that duo.
Mm-hmm.
The right duo will always come together and be able to win a championship. I mean, Joe Flacco is not going to win a Super Bowl championship with any coach other than John Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Brady and Belichick, you win 6 Super Bowls together, and then Brady gets another great coach in Arians, a guy who had been close a couple times but couldn't get there without the quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if Purdy's going to be that guy, but I think if Shanahan gets the right competitor, that X factor quarterback with him, there's no reason he can't go off and win 4 or 5. So I think it's the pairing of quarterback and coach, and whether he's going to find that guy in San Francisco or he's going to let go and go somewhere else and find that guy.
Right.
I think Shanahan can do it with the right quarterback.
And it shows, Jimmy G and fine, but he's not elite, and Purdy still has plenty more to prove. But as I mentioned in the preview show, usually the Super Bowl winning team has the better quarterback and coach duo, and now you have that. Reid and Mahomes, Brady Belichick, Walsh Montana, Nolan Bradshaw. The list goes on and on. And
Johnson and Aikman.
Yes, Johnson and Aikman. Bias aside, Manning and Coughlin, in the sense of winning multiple Super Bowls. It is about that duo coach, and time will tell. It's interesting to see Shanahan. And let's say this is obviously not going to happen, but if he were to for some reason to get fired this week, teams would be firing their head coaches for them. He's the number one candidate right away. So it might be a factor of finding that quarterback, and time will tell. But as we could say here, Andy Reid, he's the guy now. Like, he is, as I said, he's a god in the coaching.
Well, I think there's something to watch. I don't know, again, this is just my own rumor mill working.
Mm.
When Kirk Cousins left Washington, the 49ers plan was they knowing he was going to hit free agency, was to pair him up with to have Shanahan and Kirk Cousins paired up again
Mm.
after Washington. And instead, the GM traded for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Psst.
And then again, you look at who was it? Shanahan wanted Mac Jones over Trey Lance. The GM took Trey Lance.
And John
And
Lynch.
that's something that I would watch out for, would be Kirk to San Francisco this year. I'm not sure how in love Shanahan is with Purdy. Again, I think Purdy can be a good quarterback in the NFL, but I'm not sure how in love Shanahan is with Purdy. And I think if Kirk hits the open market, that would be a dark horse, I think, for people to watch for Kirk.
We're definitely having it on the record, and I'm excited to explore the free agency with you in the next couple months. And let's ask the question everybody wants to discuss. After winning his third Super Bowl at the age of 28, already a three-time Super Bowl MVP, where do you personally put Patrick Mahomes in that GOAT status? Personally, for me, the short answer, I think he is no doubt an all-time great right now, and even in a short career. I think he has plenty more to go, but it's like a Sandy Koufax in baseball. Only played 5 seasons and won multiple rings. It shows he was a dominant force. That if Mahomes wanted to retire today, he's an all-time great. Obviously, that's not going to happen, and kind of glad for it. But personally, I'll always go with the argument that in his prime, Mahomes and Brady did go at it in a Super Bowl and AFC Championship, but Brady did defeat him. But I think it will take Mahomes to get 8 rings to officially get the title. But for now, he's in as best of a spot as anyone could possibly can. And I think saying you're an all-time great is as high an honor as you can get.
I put him in my top 7 all time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure where, but I also have a very weird top 5.
Yeah.
But I put him in my top, 5 to 7 in the like 4 to 7 range
Right.
in that area. I just because of the length of the career so far. I mean,
Yeah.
you have Breeze and Manning who put up just insane numbers that Brady had to play 23 years to break.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean, if Pat goes out there and plays for 15, 16 years, he'll shatter all of them.
Clearly.
And I think he'll get there. I think it's too early to put him above those guys in the 50,000 passing yards, 500
Yeah.
touchdowns category, just because he's not there yet. So I don't think that's fair. I'm not sure it's fair to put him over a Montana or Elway kind of guy with the championships yet, because they had championships and long careers. But
Yeah.
again, I think another 2-3 years and he surpasses those guys, and another 5-6 and he's right behind Brady. And then obviously between those two, it's gonna come down to the Super Bowls. But like you said, there will always be that who beat who head on head in the Super Bowl, and it was Brady. So
Yeah. And you usually don't get that in sports. The two GOATs that play each other in the same time.
yeah.
And well, we know what happened, obviously.
Well, I
So
mean, there was an insane stat that I saw. I think I don't know if it was last week or a couple days ago, that Pat Mahomes has the third most playoff wins all time of any quarterback, which is, I mean, it's insane. He's only been in the league since 2017.
right?
But I mean, third most with 14 playoff wins.
Yeah, that's
Now,
the whole season. He's almost hitting a whole extra season with that.
so now it's 15, still one behind Montana. Tom Brady has 35 playoff wins, career playoff. I mean,
Yeah, that's that's going to take a long time if your max is 4 games. Yeah,
yeah. I mean
it's going to be a long
that
time.
number is. I mean that's 5 more Super Bowl championships, which again would give him the 8 to beat Brady, but he would need to win 5 more Super Bowls, or the equivalent of 20 playoff games the rest of his career just to match Brady's 35 playoff games. One playoff games, one, which is, I mean, that's just such an untouchable number.
Yeah. But we know he's definitely going to make a push for it. And
Absolutely.
my last question before we make our futures, what's interesting about this particular Super Bowl is people are already mentioning the possibility of a three-peat. Literally
Yes.
talked about that during the trophy ceremony. And that's
You
some
you
big
have
confidence.
you have to win two to win three. So as soon
Yeah,
as you
right?
win two, everyone's going to talk about it.
So my question to you, do you think the Kansas City Chiefs can win next year's Super Bowl and be the first team in the Super Bowl era to ever win three straight Super Bowls in a row?
At plus 650, I'd bet my mortgage on them. I mean, at plus 650 odds to go back, and because I mean they're only going to get better.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at their number one priority in free agency is a wide receiver. And you look at the wide receiver class, it's going to be, I mean, assuming these guys hit free agency, Michael Pittman, T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the list goes on. I mean,
Mike.
it's a stacked wide receiver draft.
Yeah.
That team's only going to get better. And that team in what everyone considered to be one of their worst years, worst Super Bowl runs of this dynasty, is only going to get better. For plus 650, give me Kansas City again. I mean, that's I can't see any. Now, there is a team in the AFC East that might have a shot next year, but no, I mean, no one matches up with them. It does not matter if it doesn't matter what you do. Somehow, no one ever matches up with them when it comes to playoff time.
Winners win. As simple
Yeah,
as that. It's about the winning aspect. And you could argue the best team. There's a difference between the best team and the team that wins. You could definitely say the San Francisco 49ers were the best team on paper, and we know what happened. So
I mean
that's all
the
that matters.
most talented roster, top to bottom, even with the injuries that they had with Greenlaw out and Talanoa Hufanga not playing, still, I mean, still one of the best rosters in the NFL, top to bottom. And they got dismantled by Mecole Hardman, Rashee Rice, and Justin Watson.
Yeah, right. That's what happens when you have the best player in the best quarterback in the league.
Well, I
There you
mean,
go.
Andy Reid is going to scheme them open, and Mahomes isn't going to miss when he sees them. I mean, that's just, and that again, that's a huge. You look at Brady and the offensive coordinators he had. I won't say Bill because Bill wasn't running the offense, but that was a huge thing. They found ways to get guys open or get guys in space, and Brady just did not miss. If a guy was open, he got the ball. If no one was open, the ball went into the stands. And Mahomes has a different aspect than Brady where he can get out of the pocket and be mobile. But if you can scheme guys open for him, he could hit plumbers in the chest at 60 yards if you can find a way to scheme them open for him.
Yeah, I don't know if you happen to see that Super Bowl commercial, the Duncan one, where you have
Oh yeah,
Brady still in that suit at 40, I guess 47, and still perfectly hitting the tire.
yeah.
That's how you know. That is how you know. So with that, I think we can put a bow on the 2023 NFL season. So with that, the road to Super Bowl 59 starts now. Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. Pretty much let Kansas City celebrate this week, and then let's get ready for free agency. And we are going to cover it extensively in the NFL draft because football really is an year-round sport. And we're excited. We got some good draft content coming our way, thanks to Kevin. So we're excited for that and all the good things happening to him there. So with that, on what's today, February 13th, 2024, Kevin, literally in a year from now, I believe Super Bowl 59 is literally a year from now. Can I just check that really quick? Super Bowl 59 is okay, so it's actually February 9th, but pretty much a year from now, who do you think is in the Super Bowl and who wins it?
I think Detroit beats San Francisco to get to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I think Kansas City beats my New York Jets to get to the Super Bowl. And I think Pat Mahomes gets the three-peat over Detroit.
Now that would be a no doubt battle of good versus evil. And we'll see who actually pulls that off. But I like that. So we're going to go with Kansas City versus Detroit for Super Bowl 59, with Kansas City completing the three-peat. All right, we'll get that. And for me, off the top of my head, I see Kansas City and Baltimore once again in the AFC Championship. Only this time, Kansas City gets the home field advantage, and they get the win, putting panic in Baltimore. That I actually think it's going to be the Dallas Cowboys. Well, I'm kidding. I would like to see Detroit versus I really like what Detroit has coming, and I'll go with a Detroit Dallas NFC Championship where Dak has figured it out. Um, they upgrade, they upgrade, they upgrade their weapons. It's not only CeeDee Lamb. Maybe they get someone like Romeo from Washington or something.
Yeah.
They get back in the NFC Championship, fall short, and then I don't know if you don't mind me stealing your Super Bowl right now too with Kansas City and Detroit, with Kansas City also three-peating. So let's see if we're ultimately right.
Well, there is one dark horse that I want to throw out there.
Show us.
The Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
I think are a team that could absolutely be in the Super Bowl next year. And
Yeah.
if they say history repeats itself, it would be very similar to how it worked when Aaron Rodgers took over. A year getting acclimated to the NFL and then right up into the big game. So.
Ooh, okay. That would be some poetic justice right there. Or if you had, a rematch of Super Bowl one, maybe a Green Bay and Kansas City
Yeah.
game, that'd be fun. But ultimately we will see where this all lies. Off season starts now. It's 204 days until the Thursday before Labor Day, which means 204 days until week one of the 2024 season. And I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about then. And we are about to begin our off-season coverage. So Kevin Schaefer, great job as always. Thank you.
Great to be here.
And man, great to have you as always. And that's it, everybody. That's all, folks. The 2023 NFL season and productive conversations covering it has come to an end. And now we start our third season covering the NFL 2024 season. That coverage starts now on Productive Conversations. So we'll see you then. Let's have some fun.